She thought she was just another young black traveler. He thought he was flexing his authority. What he didn't know? Her father owned the airline she flew in on. Zariah Tillman had just landed at LAX. Despite the familiarity, something about airports always made her feel slightly out of place. Her flight from Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson had lasted 4.5 hours, and her head pulsed from dry cabin air and recycled conversation. She didn't rush off the plane like most passengers. Zariah believed in moving slow when others sped up. That's when you catch the unspoken moments, the lingering glances, the wait behind stares. She adjusted the strap on her cream, leather duffel and maid, her way down the jet bridge. Her mother had texted during the layover. "I'm in the pickup lane. Call when you're at the curb. Love you, Z." Zariah smiled at the thought of her. Dressed in a sand-toned knit set and crisp white sneakers, her vibe was effortless, clean, confident, never showy. Her braids were tied back, a single gold cuff at the end of one. Her dad always said it made her look focused. First-class ticket still tucked in the sleeve of her passport. She was comfortable not trying to prove anything. But airports have a way of making certain people feel too visible. She noticed him before he said anything, Officer Brent Mallory. He stood just past the first checkpoint, not scanning the crowd, but inspecting individuals. His posture was rigid, jaw clenched, badge gleaming far more than it needed to. Zariah stayed calm, scrolling through her phone. "Excuse me, miss." His voice was clipped, direct. "Yes? Can you step over here?" "Why?" "Random screening." No equipment, no scanner, just him and a small podium. "I already cleared security in Atlanta. I'm just headed to baggage claim." "Ma'am, I asked you to step over here." The edge in his voice cut like a warning. People walked by freely, a white guy in a Dodgers jersey with earbuds, a woman in heels too focused to notice. But now eyes were turning. Zariah calmly walked over. "Is there something specific you need to see?" "Just asking a few questions, ID, flight details." She handed over her boarding pass. "Flight 422 from ATL First Class, Seat 2D. Mallory looked at it a beat too long. "First class?" "Yes." He didn't hand it back immediately. "Just doesn't add up." "What doesn't?" "You, this ticket." Zariah held her expression. "And what does a typical first-class passenger look like to you?" He didn't answer, just smirked, waiting for her to lose composure. But she didn't. She calmly took back her pass. "I'm going to baggage claim now." "I didn't say you could leave. And you haven't said why I had to stop." He stepped closer. Not threatening, just exerting silent pressure. "I'm asking the questions." She held her ground. "And I'm asking if you have legal cause to detain me." Mallory blinked. He wasn't used to this kind of resistance. Not like this. But Zariah wasn't scared. She was calculating. And her next move would change everything. Without flinching, she unlocked her phone and hovered her thumb above one name in her favorites. She hadn't made the call yet. Just let him see the readiness, that quiet patience her father always taught her, the kind that wasn't submission. It was strategy. Mallory shifted. "Where were you coming from?" "Atlanta." "Purpose of the trip?" "Personal." "How long were you there?" "I was born there." "I visit family every few months." "You got ID to prove that?" "Like my driver's license?" She handed it over, valid, nothing suspicious. Still, he inspected it like he was doing her a favor. "You always fly first class?" "Not always. My dad booked this one." Mallory raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Must be nice." She stayed quiet. He circled again, rephrasing the same questions, fishing for inconsistency. He asked about bags, seat numbers, booking dates, family. People were watching now. No scene yet. But the energy was shifting. Zariah stayed steady. Calm voice, stillness in her body, fire in her gut. What is this really about? "Routine. No one else from my flight is getting stopped." "You don't know that." "I was one of the first off the plane." "I do know." "You're getting defensive." "No, I'm asking fair questions." "You've got an attitude." "And you've got a lot of assumptions." That one hit. Quietly, sharply. Mallory's posture shifted again. "Look, lady, doesn't matter what that ticket cost or who paid for it. People who act entitled usually have something to hide." Zariah almost laughed, not from humor but exhaustion. "You don't know a thing about me." He ignored that. I see it all the time. Fly in, act above everyone, get hostile when questioned. She was done. She tapped the contact and called. Who are you calling? My father. Oh, sure, let me guess. Lawyer? Congressman? The phone rang twice. Then a voice. Z, you good? Steady, protective, her shield. Daddy, I'm at Terminal 4 Southwest Baggage Claim. There's an officer here who thinks I don't belong. A pause. I'm on my way. Nothing more. He didn't ask for details. He didn't need them. Zariah hung up. That's supposed to scare me? Mallory said. She raised an eyebrow. You'll find out soon enough. And neither of them realized just how soon. 5 minutes later, 2 black SUVs pulled into the curb outside, reserved for VIPs. The door opened. A tall man in a navy suit stepped out, silver at the temples, calm shoulders, quiet authority. He didn't stride. He arrived. Who is that? Mallory asked, suddenly less certain. Supervisor Ramirez had just joined them. She didn't need to ask. She already knew. That's Reginald Tillman, she said. The Reginald Tillman? She nodded. Owner of WestJet Air, and one of the major stakeholders in this terminal. Mallory opened his mouth, then closed it. Tillman stepped through the glass doors like he'd done it 100 times. No rush, no dramatic glances. He walked straight to his daughter. Zariah looked up. Her smile was small, almost invisible, but it was real. Hey, Daddy. He kissed her forehead. You okay? I am now. Tillman turned to Officer Mallory. No handshake, no formalities, just a cold, deliberate look. You're the one who stopped my daughter? Mallory straightened. Sir, I was following. I didn't ask what you thought you were doing. His voice wasn't loud, but it landed with weight. Detective Ramirez stepped forward, her hands clasped. Mr. Tillman, I apologize. This shouldn't have happened. I've already requested the footage and an internal review is underway. Tillman gave a subtle nod. I expect a full report by end of day, and someone from your office will speak with my legal team. Then he turned back to Mallory. You saw a well-dressed young woman standing in line with a first-class ticket, and your instinct was to confront her. To humiliate her? He paused. You picked the wrong daughter, on the wrong day. Mallory didn't reply, not because he had nothing to say, but because nothing he could say would save him now. But this wasn't the end. What came next would reveal more than one officer's mistake. There are people who make noise when they walk into a room. Then there are those who change the temperature just by standing in it. Reginald Tillman was the second kind. Airport staff shifted the moment they spotted him. The front desk manager stood a little taller. 2 TSA agents suddenly became deeply interested in paperwork. Even the airport police captain, Felix Orton, picked up his pace, trying to catch up to what was already unfolding. Tillman didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Mallory had gone from smug to silent, his hands now behind his back like a student waiting for punishment. Tillman leaned in just slightly. Tell me, what made you decide she was suspicious? Mallory hesitated. She seemed evasive. No, Tillman replied. She answered your questions clearly, repeatedly. I didn't recognize her name on the manifest. Because you don't read the manifest, Tillman said flatly. You're not airline staff. Mallory's mouth opened, then closed. Tillman didn't look angry. He looked bored, like he'd seen this same story too many times. You weren't doing your job, he said. You were flexing your badge because you could, because you thought no one would care. Silence swept the terminal. Ramirez stepped in again, her voice softer. Mr. Tillman, I've begun documenting everything. I'll personally handle the follow-up. I'm sure you will, he said, cutting her off. But let's be clear, I didn't come for apologies. She nodded, face tight. Understood. Tillman turned to Zariah. Did he touch you? No. Did he threaten you? No, but he made me feel small. That was enough. He looked back at Mallory. You will not work this terminal again. Whether you keep your badge, that's up to your department. But here, you're done. Mallory swallowed hard. Sir, I'm not sir to you. Captain Orton stepped up. Mr. Tillman, I'll take it from here. Reginald didn't even look at him. Make sure you do. Orton signaled for Mallory to follow. The officer hesitated, just long enough to remind everyone. He still clung to the authority he thought he had. But he went. They disappeared behind a side door. For the first time in 20 minutes, the terminal exhaled. Ramirez took a breath. She handled herself well. She always does, Tillman said without pause. She's had practice. Zariah glanced down. She didn't want praise. She just wanted this not to happen again. Ready? Her father asked. She nodded. They walked toward the exit. The crowd had thinned. A few people had filmed it. One teenage boy lowered his phone a second too late. No one said anything. The respect in the air wasn't loud. It was quiet, measured, like everyone there knew. Something real had just happened, even if they couldn't put words to it. Outside, the sun dipped behind the parking structure. Long shadows stretched across the pavement. The SUVs were waiting. A driver opened the door. But Reginald held out a hand. "Z," he said. "Walk with me." They passed the car and strolled down the sidewalk, away from the noise. "I knew something was wrong the moment I answered," he said softly. "I kept thinking if I just stayed calm." Zariah's voice trailed. "It was never about calm. I know I handled it. Better than I would have at your age." She gave a half smile. "That's because you didn't teach me to yell. You taught me to aim." He chuckled low. "Well, looks like you hit your mark." But what Zariah didn't know yet was that what came after this moment, the silence, the reflection, the questions, would stay with her far longer than the confrontation ever could. In the SUV, the back seat was a pocket of peace. Cool, quiet. Zariah leaned back, watching the terminal shrink through the tinted window. It felt farther than it was. Reginald sat beside her, scrolling through emails. Fast fingers, focused eyes. "What's going to happen to him?" Zariah asked. Reginald didn't look up. "Mallory?" She nodded. "Depends on his department. Suspension, maybe. Reassignment. But he won't be back at LAX." She exhaled. "That's it?" He finally turned toward her. "You wanted more?" "I don't know," she said, folding her arms. "Part of me wanted him to feel what he made me feel." He nodded slowly. "I understand. But I'm not here to give people what they give us. I'm here to make sure they don't do it again." Zariah was quiet for a moment. "That's not justice," she said. "That's management." "It's both," he replied. "Sometimes clearing out the rot is the only way to fix the foundation." Zariah didn't argue, but her jaw tightened. This wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. And she hated how easily someone who didn't even know her name managed to strip that dignity away. As the SUV merged onto Century Boulevard, Reginald's phone buzzed. He answered without hesitation. "Go ahead, pause. Have legal contact them before noon tomorrow. Yes, the statement goes out tonight. Keep it clean, nothing performative." He hung up and looked over at her. "Your story's already out there. Someone recorded it." Zariah gave a knowing nod. "I figured. They only caught the end. Just you standing your ground and me arriving. People will twist it into something it wasn't." "Let them," Reginald shrugged. "The truth doesn't need embellishment." Back at the airport, Officer Brent Mallory sat stiffly in a small room across from two internal affairs agents. A clock ticked on the wall. A mirror, two-way, he was sure, reflected his unease. Above his head, a laminated poster read, "Accountability builds trust." He didn't say much. The footage said enough. That night, the airline released a brief and pointed statement. "We do not tolerate discrimination, bias, or abuse of authority in any form. The incident involving Zariah, Tillman is under full review in collaboration with airport security leadership." Zariah's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages poured in. Some from friends who saw the clip, others from strangers. Some congratulating her, a few criticizing, a couple outright hateful. "You'll hear from both sides," Reginald said calmly. "Truth tends to make people uncomfortable." "I never asked to be anyone's symbol," she said. "You're not a symbol," he replied. "You're my daughter, a person. This happened to you, and you handled it." She stared at her hands. "Why does it happen so often?" Reginald didn't answer right away. The SUV slowed near their building in Baldwin Hills. "Because some people confuse authority with permission," he said finally. "They think a badge makes them smarter, stronger, untouchable. And when they meet someone who doesn't flinch, they feel small." The car stopped. The driver opened her door. Zariah stepped out, then turned back to her father. Do I have to prove myself every time? He stepped beside her and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You don't have to prove anything, he said. But when the moment comes, you remind them who they're talking to. She didn't smile. Not exactly, but her eyes held something solid now. Grounded. Then let them talk. What happened next would leave a bigger mark than any confrontation ever could. That night, a simple post Zariah wrote, quiet, raw, and honest, reached over 1 million views. By morning, the world had already changed. She sat at the breakfast bar the next day, half-heartedly stirring her yogurt. Her phone lit up every few seconds. Tweets, texts, TikTok stitches, messages from strangers calling her brave, composed, beautiful. Others were bitter, cruel, always a few of those. She ignored them all. The clip had gone viral. Just 90 seconds of shaky footage. A young black woman standing tall, not yelling, not shrinking, simply being unapologetically. But that wasn't what people kept talking about. They talked about the moment Reginald Tillman walked in, how the air shifted, how the officer's body language changed. The instant he recognized who he was dealing with, Zariah refreshed her feed again. WestJet had posted their statement. Her name wasn't mentioned, but everyone already knew. Reginald entered the room, dressed in his usual way, tailored slacks, crisp shirt, no tie yet. He poured a cup of coffee, sat beside her. You okay? I guess. That doesn't sound like a yes. She let out a long breath. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. Part of me wants to forget it. Another part wants to scream, say everything I didn't say yesterday. He stirred his coffee. Then say it. Who's stopping you? She looked at him. People are going to twist it no matter what. They'll say I played the rich girl card. They'll say I made a scene for attention. And they'll be wrong, he said quietly. She leaned on the counter. What's the point of staying calm, standing tall, doing everything right? If someone can still stop you, judge you, try to reduce you to something they think you are? Reginald let the silence settle. I used to believe, she continued, that if I dressed the part, spoke clearly, had all the answers, maybe they'd just let me live. He didn't interrupt. He knew this wasn't for him. It was for her. But yesterday, none of it mattered. I did everything right, and still he saw me as a threat, or worse, as nothing. Reginald finally spoke. That's because he wasn't trained to see the real. You just a version. He thought he already knew. Zariah swallowed. So what now? Reginald reached over and gently tapped her phone. You've got their attention. Now say something worth hearing. That afternoon, Zariah sat at her desk and opened her laptop. No edits, no hashtags, no filter. Just truth. She typed, Yesterday I flew home from Atlanta. I flew first class. A graduation gift from my father. At LAX, I was stopped without reason by a man who saw my presence as a problem. I stayed calm. I answered his questions. I did everything right, but I was treated like I didn't belong. I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of how quickly dignity can be taken from someone just trying to exist. I did stay calm, but I shouldn't have had to. My father is a businessman, a respected leader. More importantly, he's a father who raised me to understand my worth. That officer didn't know who I was. And that's exactly the issue. Because respect shouldn't be earned based on who your father is. It should come from who you are from the moment you walk in. I didn't share this for attention. I shared it because I'm tired of being expected to stay composed in situations where I never should have been targeted to begin with. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for equal treatment. Dignity has no dress code. She hit post, closed her laptop. No dramatic music, no fireworks, just the truth. A few minutes later, her father walked past her, placing a quiet hand on her shoulder. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. But the real moment of clarity came in the days that followed, when strangers began to reach out, one by one, with stories of their own. 3 days later, Zariah's inbox looked like a flood zone. Not just brands or media, though there were plenty of those, but real people. Dozens of emails, hundreds of DMs, voicemails that cracked halfway through sentences. Young women, older men, flight attendants, nurses, college students, a retired Marine, all saying the same thing in different words. It happened to me, too. There was no single narrative. A woman described being interrogated at DFW while her white coworker passed freely. A high schooler wrote about being followed by mall security for wearing a hoodie. While holding a violin case, one man shared how he flew with his daughter for the first time, and how a gate agent checked their boarding passes 3 times, only letting them board after everyone else had gone through. Some stories were 1 sentence long, others were pages. Some were angry. Many were exhausted. But every single one landed the same. Zariah hadn't asked to be a symbol. She'd told her father that much. But symbols are often just people who refuse to shrink at the wrong time. And whether she liked it or not, people had seen something in her that day, something they needed to believe existed. WestJet released a second statement, this time with her name. Reginald didn't write it, but he reviewed it before it went public. Zariah read it too. We thank Ms. Zariah Tillman for her composure and clarity during an incident that should never have occurred. While we regret what took place, we also recognize the opportunity it presents to reinforce our values, not just in words but in practice. Zariah didn't repost it. She didn't need to. Her original message had already been shared across the country by educators, community leaders, even a few celebrities. But it wasn't the attention that moved her. It was the validation, the quiet confirmation she wasn't alone. Life lesson. Never let anyone shrink your worth to fit their small expectations. Your presence is your proof. If you believe in that, hit subscribe, because stories like this deserve to be heard.